That night, the savage attacked the entire city, with almost all buildings set ablaze by their assault. Young Hayato, holding hands with the little girl, ran together, trying to escape the savage's onslaught. However, a savage's attack struck them, sending Hayato's small body flying and injuring him. He saw a savage about to harm the little girl and screamed hysterically. Then tanks fired upon the savage. Hayato immediately ran toward the little girl's body, but unfortunately, his friend was severely injured and could be saved. Hayato hugged her lifeless body. This scene was a recurring nightmare experienced by Kizuragi Hayato over the past few nights. At that moment, Hayato was on a plane, still wondering who the girl in his dreams was. He gazed at a place in the middle of the ocean, an academy called Little Garden. Soon, Hayato would land there and begin living at the academy. Upon arrival, he admired the place, which was indeed enormous. As he disembarked from the plane, he suddenly saw a banner welcoming him. Two girls' voices echoed through loudspeakers, calling his name and referring to him as the person with the highest 100 compatibility. The voices continued calling and searching for him, but Hayato chose to remain silent and hide. He quickly ran away when a container truck passed by. The two girls assumed Hayato was on the last flight and waited for him there. Hayato promptly changed into his uniform and followed the directions on his phone's app. He approached a crowd and asked one of them if this was the new student orientation venue. Fritz Granz confirmed it was the correct place. Suddenly, a student named Raditya St. Emilian shouted, suspecting that the student was Hayato. Raditya's outburst caused a commotion among the students, who remarked that Hayato was the top-ranked student. They surrounded him, eager to confirm if he was indeed Hayato, with some even asking for his autograph. Fortunately, he managed to escape the crowd and hid behind a wall. Just as he breathed a sigh of relief, a student suddenly shouted a welcome and tackled Hayato, causing them both to fall. The student hugged him tightly, expressing excitement at Hayato's arrival. Hayato felt pain from the student's weight and didn't even know who he was. He asked for the student's name, who introduced himself as Emil Crossfode, also a new student at Little Garden. Emil smiled happily at Hayato, leaving him confused. Raditya approached Hayato and bowed, apologizing for her earlier outburst. Fritz blamed Raditya, pressing her head down as she bowed to Hayato, which angered her. She was upset because Fritz treated her like a child. However, Fritz suggested that Raditya blame her own height, which made her look like a child. Emil informed Hayato that Fritz and Raditya had been close since childhood. Emil's closeness to Hayato prompted Fritz to comment on how familiar they seemed despite just meeting. Raditya even remarked that they were too close, as if Emil wasn't a guy. The entrance ceremony for the new students commenced, guided by two second-year students who also served as vice presidents of the student council, Erika Kendall and Lidi Steinberg. They invited the captain of Little Garden and student council president, Claire Harvey, to address the newcomers. As Claire stepped forward to speak, two students, Noah Sheldon and Shumei Liu, arrived breathlessly, apologizing for their tardiness. Claire questioned their audacity for arriving late to such an important event. They explained that they had gone to the airport to meet Hayato but couldn't find him. Lidi reprimanded them, pointing out that Hayato was already present. Claire declared that their disregard for rules made them unfit for Little Garden and ordered them to pack their belongings and leave. Just as Hayato was about to raise his hand to speak, Emil stood up and protested, calling the decision excessive. Emil argued that expelling students for a single mistake, regardless of their status, was unfair. Hayato tried to intervene, but Emil resisted, expressing disdain for the abuse of power. Lidi scolded both Emil and Hayato, but Hayato cautiously agreed that the punishment seemed harsh. Claire responded that all students at Little Garden were not ordinary. They were aspiring slayers who risked their lives against the savage. In battle, a single mistake could be fatal and jeopardize the entire squadron, making disobedience a matter of life and death. Emil countered, suggesting that orders themselves could be flawed, but Erika interrupted, insisting that Claire's commands, as the leader of the military department, were absolute. Emil provocatively mentioned that Hayato's compatibility with the 100 was higher than Claire's. Lidi, angered by the disrespect towards Claire, threatened to expel Emil if she insulted Claire again. Emil defiantly challenged this, prompting Hayato to swiftly silence her. Claire then announced that Emil, along with Noah and Shumei, were expelled from Little Garden. As Hayato restrained Emil from reacting further, Claire inquired if Hayato objected to their expulsion. After a brief hesitation, Claire pressed him for an answer. Hayato admitted his objection, surprising everyone. He explained that Noah and Shumei were late because they were searching for him, and if that hadn't occurred, Emil wouldn't have spoken out. Although he felt unqualified to offer an opinion, he pleaded for Claire's leniency. Lady accused Hayato of being impudent, but Claire intervened. She proposed a duel to Hayato. If he could defeat her, Emil, Noah, and Shumei would not be expelled. The duel was scheduled for the following afternoon in the main Coliseum. Before Hayato could voice his concerns, Emil confidently accepted the challenge, assuring Hayato of his victory. After the ceremony concluded, Hayato confronted Emil about accepting the challenge without consulting him, especially since their opponent was the strongest individual in Little Garden. Emil reassured Hayato of his capability to win the duel. Hayato felt Emil's expectations were too high. They entered an elevator, and Emil introduced Hayato to her close friend, the renowned technologist and head of 100 Research at Little Garden, Charlotte Demandiez. They exchanged greetings. Mei, Charlotte's assistant, sniffed around Hayato and remarked that despite being from Yamato, he didn't smell like soy sauce. Emil mentioned that Charlotte was considered a child prodigy, which surprised Hayato. Charlotte jokingly asked if Emil was teasing her by calling her a child, as she was of marriageable age. Charlotte referred to Emil as Emil, prompting Emil to pinch Charlotte's cheek in correction. Charlotte was surprised that someone who had never used 100 before dared to challenge Claire to a duel. She had heard the news from Lisa. Lisa was the autonomous computer that managed everything in Little Garden, and she was also capable of interacting with people. Charlotte then showed Hayato his 100 and explained that the 100 was the only effective weapon against the savage creatures. However, only humans who could react to the variable stone were able to use it, and these humans were called Slayers. The 100 could change form depending on its user, which was why this magical weapon earned its name. Claire used a dragon-type 100, so it was no surprise that she was so powerful. While the forms and combat styles of the 100 varied, their sole purpose was to protect humanity. Charlotte asked Hayato if, now that he had 100 in his hands, he was prepared to take on the responsibility and if he was ready for what was to come. Without hesitation, Hayato affirmed that he was ready and accepted his 100. Charlotte had already prepared a training arena and asked Hayato to change into his variable suit. She also invited both Hayato and Emil to use the training grounds as much as they wanted. After changing into the variable suit, Hayato noticed that the outfit felt a bit tight. Emil assured him that the suit could adjust its shape. Suddenly, Emil playfully asked where Hayato was looking. Hayato replied, reminding her that they were both guys. Emil then instructed Hayato to grip the 100, focus his mind on transforming it into a weapon, and say 100 on to activate it. Understanding the process, Hayato tried activating his 100. He imagined the kind of weapon he wanted, and after a moment, the 100 responded. Charlotte, observing through the monitor, announced that Hayato's 100 was called Flying Swallow, and that it was a night-type weapon. Emil excitedly remarked that Hayato's 100 was pretty cool and declared that she wouldn't be outdone. Curious, Hayato asked if Emil already had 100. Emil proudly confirmed that she did and immediately activated it. Hayato was eager to see what kind of weapon Emil wielded. She revealed that her 100 was called Arms Shroud, and that it belonged to a special innocence-type category. Emil reminded Hayato that their duel with Claire was the next day and urged him to start training seriously. Without warning, Emil fired her weapon at Hayato. Instinctively, he summoned an energy shield to block the attack. Impressed, Emil praised Hayato for being able to generate a protective barrier so quickly. Hayato, however, insisted that it was just a fluke and scolded Emil for attacking him without warning. Emil playfully argued that the student council president wouldn't wait for anyone and continued firing multiple shots at Hayato. Suddenly, Hayato disappeared from her sight. He managed to defend himself against the barrage of attacks, and Emil, amazed by his skill, couldn't help but acknowledge his talent. She then suggested that they intensify their training with stronger attacks. After their session, Emil complimented Hayato on his hard work and expressed her confidence that he would easily win the duel. Just then, Hayato received a message from his younger sister, Karain. He had promised to visit her in the hospital after the entrance ceremony. Karain had been in fragile health and was receiving care in the hospital. Hayato's enrollment in Little Garden was contingent on Karain receiving complete medical support. Without wasting time, Hayato hurried to see his sister. He immediately apologized for being late. Karain, slightly sulking, playfully complained about his tardiness. To cheer her up, Hayato kissed her forehead, which made Karain smile and forgive him. She then asked how the entrance ceremony went. Hayato simply replied that it was a long story. Just as they were talking, the nurse entered the room. Her revealing outfit momentarily left Hayato speechless. The nurse named Miharu. informed him that visiting hours were over. Hayato quickly apologized. Karin teased him, calling him a flirt for blushing while looking at Miharu's chest. Flustered, Hayato denied it, while Miharu smiled at his reaction. Hayato returned to his room only to be shocked when he found the lights already on. He was even more surprised to see Emil fresh out of the shower. Emil immediately screamed and started throwing things at Hayato until he passed out. When Hayato regained consciousness, he was startled to find his head resting on Emil's lap. He quickly jumped up, accidentally bumping into Emil's face. Both of them blurted out, "What are you doing?" in unison. Emil blamed Hayato for suddenly waking up, while Hayato protested that he was shocked to find himself on another guy's lap. Emil continued to scold him for entering without permission. Hayato argued that it was his room after all. Emil smiled mischievously and revealed that they would be sharing the room together. She then asked Hayato to take off his uniform so she could sew the loose button back on. While Emil was trying to sew, Hayato offered to do it himself, but Emil insisted that tomorrow's duel was more important. She told him to let her help. While sewing, Emil accidentally pricked her finger, causing it to bleed. Without thinking, Hayato grabbed her hand, put her finger in his mouth to suck the blood, and then applied a band-aid. Emil brushed it off as a minor injury, but Hayato explained that it was just a habit. Having survived a savage attack in the past, he panicked whenever he saw someone injured. Emil smiled softly and thanked Hayato. The next day at the main Coliseum, Hayato and Claire stood ready for their duel. The stands were packed with students eager to watch the match. Claire asked if Hayato was ready. He responded that, like it or not, he had to be. Claire activated her 100 first, transforming and equipping herself with weapons on both sides. It was then Hayato's turn to activate his 100, summoning his long sword and preparing himself. The announcer declared the official start of the duel between Claire and Hayato, and the crowd erupted with excitement. Claire, with a confident expression, challenged Hayato to show her his full strength. That day, the duel between Claire, the student council president of Little Garden, and Hayato, the new student, was about to begin. Noah and Shumei hoped that Hayato wouldn't get hurt since he was fighting for their sake. Lidi then explained the duel's rules. The time limit was 15 minutes, and the match would end if one of them passed out, ran out of energy, or had their weapons stripped away. Suddenly, Claire told Lidi that she wouldn't be using her full arsenal for this duel. Hayato was still confused about what she meant by that. The fighting technique used by certain people at this school was to battle at full power by unleashing all the energy of their weapon. Claire mentioned that if the match ended too quickly, she'd feel bad for the audience. Emil then explained that this meant Claire was holding back her strength. Hayato was shocked when Emil spoke to him, telling him that she would support him from behind and instructing him to follow the plan they had practiced yesterday. Erika scolded Hayato, saying that receiving assistance in a duel was a violation, but Claire told Erika to let it slide since Hayato was a new student. She was giving him some leniency. The duel was set to begin in 10 seconds, and the audience grew tense with anticipation. Claire told Hayato to show her his strength. Suddenly, Hayato was thrown off balance and crashed into Claire, landing on top of her. As he tried to get up, he accidentally pressed his hand against Claire's chest, causing her to gasp and scream. Claire immediately scolded him, telling him not to touch her inappropriately. It was then that Hayato realized what he had just done. His hand had landed on a sensitive area. He quickly apologized, explaining that he still wasn't able to control his power properly. Claire, however, refused to forgive him, furious that Hayato had squeezed her chest when no one had ever touched her before. Claire launched multiple attacks at Hayato, forcing him to dodge frantically. As she closed the distance, she landed a punch to his stomach and followed up with a powerful kick. Hayato was sent flying backward. Claire then unleashed her Alicitarian attack, and Emil immediately instructed Hayato to use his energy shield. Hayato managed to block the attack successfully, prompting Claire to compliment his skill. Hayato thanked Emil for her guidance. Emil suddenly asked when exactly Hayato had grabbed Claire's chest. Hayato, frustrated, explained that it was an accident and was confused as to why Emil seemed angry at him. Emil admitted that their original plan had failed, but that didn't mean their strategy was a complete loss. She urged Hayato to attack again. Hayato rushed toward Claire, attempting to slash at her with his sword, but Claire effortlessly deflected his strike. She taunted him, asking if that was all he had. She then fired multiple shots at him, forcing him to dodge once again. Emil instructed him to use the method they had practiced. Hayato stood still, focusing his mind. Lidi and Erika were puzzled by what he was doing, but Emil explained that it was part of their training. Hayato concentrated, then suddenly leaped high into the air, swinging his sword down with all his might, unleashing a massive attack directly at Claire. The strike created a large explosion right in front of her. Emil cheered, excited that Hayato had successfully executed the attack. However, Hayato was stunned when he saw that Claire had managed to create a shield to protect herself from the blast. Claire was surprised by the attack but acknowledged that Hayato's effort wasn't wasted. She then prepared to launch a finishing move. She aimed all of her weapons at Hayato, who struggled to defend himself. The audience grew concerned as Hayato lay in the middle of the explosion site. The announcer was about to declare the match over, but Hayato suddenly spoke up, stating that he hadn't given up yet. Emil started to worry about him. Claire commended Hayato's fighting spirit, saying it was worth testing further. She then summoned a new weapon, the Buster Cannon. Lydia was shocked that Claire would use such a powerful weapon against a new student. Emil quickly warned Hayato that it was dangerous. Hayato, meanwhile, felt his body heating up. Claire prepared to launch her final attack at Hayato, and the energy blast shot toward him. But to everyone's surprise, Hayato appeared right in front of Claire in an instant and destroyed the Buster Cannon with his sword. He then swung his blade at Claire with incredible speed, forcing her into a corner. Claire was astonished by Hayato's strength, and Fritz, who was watching, couldn't believe how different Hayato's movements were compared to before. As Hayato managed to corner Claire, she immediately fired her Buster Cannon at close range, convinced that with such a short distance, Hayato would undoubtedly lose. However, to everyone's surprise, Hayato activated his full armament and deployed an end barrier. Lydia was baffled. How could someone who had only received their 100 2 days ago be this powerful? Hayato continued his relentless attacks, sending Claire flying. Realizing that she was the perfect queen and refusing to give up, Claire rose into the air. She unleashed a peel attack toward Hayato. Though he used his shield, Claire's petals seemed capable of piercing through his protective barrier. Claire then prepared to use her Buster Cannon at full power against Hayato. The attack was so powerful that it even pierced through the protective barriers of the Colosseum. Hayato weakened under the impact of the attack and collapsed unconscious. Emil immediately ran to Hayato, relieved that he was still alive. She demanded an explanation from Claire. Why had she used her full armament after stating earlier that she wouldn't? Charlotte arrived and asked Emil not to blame Claire, as statements made before a match were not part of the official duel rules. While Charlotte understood Emil's frustration, she confirmed that Claire was the winner of the duel. However, Claire disagreed. Even though she had won according to the rules, she admitted that she had lost to herself. Charlotte then declared the match a draw. Hayato was in the student infirmary, unaware of where he was at first. He was still unconscious but could faintly hear someone apologizing to him. When he finally woke up, he was shocked to see Claire standing in front of him. Hayato admitted that he had lost and asked if Emil had been expelled from Little Garden. Claire reassured him that she had withdrawn her decision. Hayato then mentioned that he didn't remember anything that happened during the fight. Curious, Claire asked who Hayato really was. She couldn't understand how he had managed to activate his full armament, deploy an end barrier, and even corner her in their duel. She was genuinely puzzled by his abilities. However, Hayato told her not to ask him about it. Suddenly, Emil burst into the room and accused Claire of trying to trick Hayato. Claire dismissed the accusation, saying she was simply checking on him, then quickly left. Emil immediately turned her attention back to Hayato, asking if he was alright. Hayato, feeling guilty, asked if he had been a burden to her. Emil assured him that his safety was her top priority. Meanwhile, in her car, Claire seemed lost in thought. Erika suggested that she shouldn't dwell too much on the duel, but Claire quickly denied that she was thinking about it. Erika then teasingly asked if she was thinking about how Hayato had touched her chest. Claire, caught off guard, denied it in a flustered manner. Lydia chimed in, saying that Claire wasn't the type to get upset over something like that. Erika then jokingly admitted that even she had never touched Claire's large chest. Embarrassed, Claire demanded that they drop the subject immediately.